Once upon a folktale in the heart of a vibrant village, nestled beside the whispering Omi River and beneath the watchful gaze of ancient baobab trees, lived a young woman named Labak. Her hands, though small, held a wisdom that belied her years, a gift for coaxing life from the earth's bounty. She knew the secrets of every root, every leaf, every bloom that thrived in the fertile soil of her homeland. When fever scorched a child's brow or a cough rattled an elder's chest, it was Labak they sought, a gentle touch and potent concoctions bringing swift relief. The villagers at first revered her, their hearts swelling with gratitude for her selfless spirit. Her laughter, light and clear as a mountain spring, often echoed through the market, a melody of peace and contentment. Yet, as is often the way with extraordinary gifts, a shadow began to creep into the villagers' admiration. Whispers, like dry leaves skittering across the dusty ground, started to follow Labeg wherever she went. They spoke of her unusual methods, her solitary walks deep into the forest where spirits were said to dwell, and the strange, almost magical speed with which her remedies worked. These murmurs, though faint at first, found fertile ground in the heart of Adebayo, a respected elder whose words carried the weight of tradition and fear. Adebayo, with his eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of generations and a smile that rarely reached them, began to sow seeds of doubt. He spoke of ancient laws, of the dangers of power untamed, and of the fine line between healing and something far more sinister. The dry season arrived, bringing with it not just the parched earth, but a sickness that clung to the air like a shroud. Children coughed, elders weakened, and even the strongest warriors found themselves brought low by an unseen enemy. Labak walked tirelessly, her brow furrowed with concern, her hands stained with the juices of countless herbs. She moved from hut to hut, a beacon of hope in the growing despair. But the sickness was relentless, and for every person she healed, another seemed to fall ill. The villagers, desperate and afraid, looked for answers, for someone to blame. And Adebayo, with his carefully chosen words, pointed a finger not at the sickness itself, but at the one who fought it most fiercely. Her remedies are too potent, he would lament, his voice a low rumble that carried through the village square. Her power too swift, such things are not natural. They are the work of forces beyond our understanding, forces that demand a price. Fear, a venomous serpent, coiled around the hearts of the villagers. They remembered the whispers, the strange speed of her cures, and the way she communed with the forest. Their gratitude cuddled into suspicion, their admiration into dread. Labak, once their savior, became a pariah. Children who once ran to greet her now hid behind their mothers' skirts. Women averted their gaze, and men once quick to offer a kind word now hurried past with stony faces. The laughter that once filled her home was replaced by the chilling silence of isolation. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly on the village, a group of elders, their faces grim, approached Labak's hut. Adebayo stood at their head, his eyes, usually so calm, now burning with a cold fire. He accused her, not in whispers, but in a voice that echoed through the silent village, of consorting with dark spirits, of bringing the sickness upon them, of being a witch. Labake, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs, tried to explain, to reason, to remind them of all the lives she had saved, but their ears were deafened by fear, their minds clouded by Adebayo's insidious words. The chief Oba, a man usually known for his wisdom and fairness, stood by, his face etched with conflict, but ultimately swayed by the tide of public opinion. You must leave Labak, Oba said, his voice heavy with regret, for the good of the village, until the truth of this matter can be discerned. Labake looked at the faces of the people she had served, the people she had loved, and saw only fear and condemnation. With a heavy heart, she gathered a few meager belongings, a small pouch of her most precious herbs, and turned her back on the only home she had ever known. As she walked away, the dust rising around her bare feet, she could feel the eyes of the village upon her, a thousand silent accusations. The Omi River, usually a source of comfort, seemed to weep with her, its gentle murmur now a mournful sigh. Where would she go? How would she survive? And would the truth ever truly see the light of day in a village consumed by fear and suspicion? The answer, like the path before her, was shrouded in an ominous uncertainty. Labake walked for days, the sun a relentless hammer on her head, the dust of the path clinging to her skin like a second shroud. Her heart ached with a pain deeper than any physical wound, a pain born of betrayal and injustice. She found solace in the embrace of the wild, sleeping under the vast star studded African sky, her only companions the chirping crickets and the distant howl of a hyena. She survived on the roots and berries she knew so well, her healing hands now tending only to her own weary body. Yet, even in her solitude, the image of her village, sick and afraid, haunted her dreams. She knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within her soul, that the sickness was not of her making, and that Adebayo's words were poison, not truth. Back in the village, the situation grew dire. The sickness, far from abating with Labak's departure, intensified its grip. More and more villagers succumbed, their bodies racked with fever, their breaths shallow and ragged. The traditional healers, revered for generations, tried every remedy known to them, chanting ancient incantations, brewing bitter concoctions, and offering sacrifices to the ancestors. But nothing worked. The drums of mourning became a constant, somber rhythm echoing through the once vibrant community. Fear, once a whisper, now roared through the village, a hungry beast devouring hope. Oba, the village chief, watched his people suffer, his heart heavy with a grief he could not articulate. He had banished Labak, believing it was for the good of his people, a necessary sacrifice to appease the unseen forces Adebayo had so convincingly described. But now, with the sickness raging unchecked, a seed of doubt began to sprout in his mind. He saw the desperation in the eyes of his people, the hollowed cheeks of the children, the despair of the mothers. He remembered Labak's gentle touch, her unwavering dedication, and the countless lives she had saved. Could he have been wrong? Could Adebayo's wisdom have been clouded by something darker? Among the afflicted was Folami, Oba's own daughter, a young woman of vibrant spirit and keen intellect. Her laughter, once as bright as the morning sun, was now replaced by a weak cough. Her eyes, usually sparkling with life, were dull and listless. Oba, usually stoic, felt a tremor of panic. He called upon every healer, every elder, every wise woman in the village, but their efforts were in vain. Folami, his beloved daughter, was fading, and with her the last vestiges of his hope. Adebayo, meanwhile, moved through the suffering village with a chilling calm. He offered words of false comfort, of patience, of faith in the ancestors, but his eyes, when he thought no one was watching, held a glint of something cold and calculating, a satisfaction that was deeply unsettling. He reveled in the chaos, in the power he now wielded over the terrified villagers. He had successfully removed Labake, the only one who truly threatened his hidden agenda, and now the village was ripe for his manipulation. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. A young woman, a close friend of Ptolemy's named Amara, crept out of the village. She had seen the desperation in Ptolemy's eyes, the helplessness of the healers, and the growing despair of the chief. She remembered the stories of Labake's kindness, her unwavering dedication, and the miraculous cures she had brought. Driven by a desperate hope and a deep love for her friend, Amara decided to do the unthinkable. She would seek out Labake, the banished healer, and beg for her help. She knew the risks, the dangers of venturing into the wild alone, and the wrath of the villagers if she were discovered. But as she looked back at the smoke rising from the village, a mournful testament to the spreading sickness, she knew she had no other choice. The fate of Folami, and perhaps the entire village, now rested on the shoulders of a young woman venturing into the unknown, seeking help from the very person they had cast out. Would Labak, scorned and banished, even consider returning to a place that had so cruelly rejected her? And even if she did, would it be too late to save Folami and the village teetering on the brink of collapse? Amara, fueled by desperation and a fierce loyalty to her friend, journeyed through the dense forest, her heart a drumbeat against her ribs. She followed the faint trails, guided by the whispers of the wind and the knowledge of Labak's preferred solitary haunts. Days turned into nights, and just as despair began to gnaw at her resolve, she stumbled upon a small, secluded clearing. There, tending to a patch of vibrant, unfamiliar herbs, was Labake. Her face, though thinner, still held the same gentle wisdom, and her eyes, though shadowed with a hint of sadness, still sparkled with an inner light. Labake, surprised but not unwelcoming, listened patiently as Amara, breathless and tearful, recounted the village's plight, the relentless sickness, and Folami's fading life. A flicker of pain crossed Labake's face as she heard of the suffering, a testament to her enduring compassion despite the villagers' betrayal. But when Amara spoke of Adebayo's growing influence, of his chilling calm amidst the chaos, a different emotion hardened Labake's gaze. She knew then that the sickness was not merely a natural affliction, but a symptom of a deeper, more insidious evil at play. There is a plant, Labake said, her voice low and firm, a rare and powerful herb that grows only in the highest reaches of the Whispering Mountains. It is called Uaje, the witch's leaf. Though its true power is to cleanse, not to curse, it is the only thing that can combat this particular affliction. Amara's eyes widened. But the mountains are dangerous, Labak, and the journey is long. The journey is necessary, Labak replied, already gathering her tools for Folami and for the village. Together, they embarked on the perilous trek to the Whispering Mountains. They faced treacherous paths, biting winds, and the chilling silence of the high altitudes. Labak, with her innate knowledge of the land, guided them, her determination a shield against the elements. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, they reached a hidden crevice where, bathed in the pale moonlight, grew the shimmering Iwe Aje. Its leaves pulsed with a faint, ethereal glow, a promise of healing. As they descended the mountains, the precious herb carefully wrapped, Lebeck's heart was a mix of trepidation and resolve. She knew returning to the village would be fraught with danger, not just from the sickness, but from the fear and suspicion that still festered. Yet the image of Folami's pale face and the suffering of her people propelled her forward. She was no longer just a healer, she was a beacon of truth, carrying the antidote to both the physical and spiritual sickness that plagued her home. They arrived at the outskirts of the village under the cloak of dawn. the first rays of sun painting the sky in hues of hope. But their arrival did not go unnoticed. A figure emerged from the shadows, his form silhouetted against the rising sun. It was Adebayo, his eyes gleaming with a predatory light. He had been watching, waiting, his dark magic sensing Labake's return. His face, usually so composed, was now contorted with a chilling rage. He knew the Yui Aje was the key, the one thing that could unravel his carefully woven web of deceit. He would not allow it. You return, witch. Adebayo hissed, his voice no longer the calm rumble of an elder, but a venomous snarl. To spread more of your dark influence. Labak stood her ground, the Yue Aje clutched tightly in her hand. I return to heal Adebayo, to bring truth where you have sown lies. Adebayo's laughter was a harsh, grating sound. Truth? You speak of truth when you are the very embodiment of deceit. This village will not fall prey to your sorcery again. With a sudden, terrifying surge of power, Adebayo raised his hands, and the very air around them crackled with an unseen energy. Dark tendrils, like grasping shadows, snaked towards Labake, intent on seizing the precious herb. Amara cried out, terrified, but Labake remained steadfast, her gaze unwavering. The confrontation had begun, and the fate of the village and the truth itself hung precariously in the balance. Would Labake's healing light be enough to dispel Adebayo's encroaching darkness, or would the village be consumed by the very evil it had unwittingly embraced? The dark tendrils lunged, but Labake, with the swiftness born of instinct and a deep connection to the earth, sidestepped them. She held the Yue Aje aloft, its faint glow intensifying, pushing back against Adebayo's encroaching darkness. His eyes, now fully consumed by malice, narrowed. He had underestimated her, underestimated the purity of her spirit and the true power of her healing. Foolish girl, Adebayo roared, his voice distorted, no longer human. You cannot fight what you do not understand. He unleashed a torrent of dark energy, a swirling vortex of shadows and chilling whispers. The villagers, drawn by the commotion, emerged from their huts, their faces etched with terror. They saw Adebayo, not the respected elder they knew, but a monstrous figure, his true nature revealed in the terrifying display of power. They saw Labake, standing firm, a small but unyielding light against the encroaching gloom. Labake, though shaken, did not falter. She closed her eyes for a moment, drawing strength from the earth beneath her feet, from the ancestors who had guided her path. When she opened them, they shone with a fierce, unwavering resolve. She began to chant, not a spell of attack, but a song of life, a melody of healing that resonated with the very essence of the Iwe Aje. The air around her shimmered, and a wave of pure, golden light emanated from her, clashing with Adebayo's darkness. The clash was deafening, a battle between light and shadow that shook the very foundations of the village. Adebayo screamed, a sound of pure agony, as Labak's light began to unravel his dark magic, exposing the source of the sickness that had plagued the village. It was not a natural illness, but a blight woven by Adebayo's own hands, a vile concoction designed to weaken the villagers, to make them susceptible to his control, and to discredit Labak, the only one who could truly stand against him. Oba, the chief, watched in horror, the truth dawning on him with a sickening clarity. He had been blind, misled by fear and the insidious whispers of a man he had trusted. He saw the suffering of his people, the pain in Ptolemy's eyes, and the unwavering courage of Labak, the woman he had banished. Shame washed over him, a bitter taste in his mouth. As Labak's light intensified, Adebayo's form began to waver, his monstrous facade crumbling. He shrieked, a desperate guttural sound as the ewe Aji's cleansing power stripped away his dark magic, revealing him for what he truly was, a withered, pathetic man consumed by his own greed and lust for power. With a final desperate cry, he collapsed, his dark energy dissipating into the morning air, leaving behind only a lingering stench of decay. The golden light from Labake enveloped the village, washing away the last vestiges of the sickness. Folami, who had been on the brink of death, stared, her eyes fluttering open, a faint blush returning to her cheeks. The other afflicted villagers also began to recover, their coughs subsiding, their fevers breaking. A collective gasp of relief swept through the crowd, followed by a murmur of awe. Oba, tears streaming down his face, fell to his knees before Labake. Forgive me, Labake, he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. We were blind. We were foolish. You are truly a gift to our people. The villagers, their hearts filled with remorse and gratitude, echoed his plea. They rushed forward, not with accusations, but with outstretched hands, their faces alight with a newfound understanding. Labake, her strength returning, offered a gentle smile. There was no anger in her heart, only a profound sense of peace. The truth had prevailed, and with it, healing had returned to her beloved village. Adebayo, stripped of his power and exposed for his treachery, was banished from the village, never to return. His name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the insidious nature of fear. Labake was welcomed back, not just as a healer, but as a hero, her name whispered with reverence and love. She continued to tend to her people, her hands bringing comfort and her wisdom guiding them. The village, having learned a painful but invaluable lesson, thrived once more, its laughter echoing louder than ever before, a testament to the enduring power of truth, compassion, and the unwavering spirit of a woman who was once misunderstood, but ultimately revealed as the good that had always been there. Morals of the story: the eyes that see only evil often miss the good that stands before them. Truth, like the morning sun, will always break through the darkest night. A heart quick to judge is a heart slow to understand. Compassion is a light that can banish the shadows of fear and prejudice. Thank you for staying till the end of this amazing story. Do like, comment, subscribe, and share with friends. Until our next episode, do guard your heart with all diligence.